welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me once again, going over some news here. So, last time I did a couple of comparisons over the different types of gaming consoles that exist in the market. So, this is kind of the follow up going and putting the PlayStation 5 with the Xbox Series X. And yes, I will be talking about the digital versions as well. So, I know that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X were not my top picks, and mainly because of the price, right? I mean, you're looking at a good $600-700 price tag, especially when you take into consideration wanting a second controller, games, and everything. It's going to be a lot more. Don't forget the taxes. So it feels like people kind of forget this part when they're talking about the next gen consoles. Yes, people are taking into consideration that it is going to be expensive, but between the games, the taxes, if you need to pay shipping on this thing, it adds up. So we're going to go and look at a few different things when it comes to these two next gen consoles. Now, the first thing that I'm going to focus on is specs and their financing. So since we're already talking about price, let's continue with that. So obviously these are not cheap consoles. One thing that I really love that Xbox Series X has done is with Microsoft, you can actually go there and finance it, which is fantastic, especially when you want to take in, you know, profit from their Game Pass, right? Which is amazing. I mean, compared to the PlayStation Now, it is a better system altogether, better service, right? Well, that being said, they do include the price of the console in this monthly fee, which makes sense. You are financing it. Here's the catch, right? So, for all of you that are actually looking to finance it, I would tell you think twice, right? At least not necessarily in this type of a way. So, first of all, let's start with their digital, right? You're looking at $30 a month for you to be able to finance the gaming console. So already it's more than double of what you would be normally paying. You have the budget for it, fantastic. The catch here is that you're not actually you're not financing it with Microsoft itself. You're financing it with a bank. So in my case, since I'm in Canada, you're financing it with RBC Royal Bank. So if you think that you're accidentally, gonna make a yeah, you can skip a payment for whatever reason, you forgot anything. Well, guess what? That skip payment just damage your credit because now you're borrowing money from a bank. You're not financing it from Microsoft. That's one thing. Second of all, you're looking at the cost of the product, right? The cost of the actual gaming console. You factor that in with the Game Pass. Everything else essentially goes into interest. You're going to end up paying more than double the price at the end of your financing, which is for 24 months. That's a lot. So before you guys decide, I'm getting a free console, you're really not. You're paying double for this. Same thing goes for the Xbox Series X and not the digital version. You're paying $10 more, so you're looking at $40 a month, right? So if you guys have any doubts about my math, you can essentially just do 40, 40 times 24, deduct that by the cost of the Game Pass, and you're going to see how much you guys are going to be spending, right? It's a lot of money for 24 months. Call me crazy, guys. I would tell you find another way to finance this console rather than use the Xbox Game Pass financing here. It's way too expensive as far as I'm concerned. I know there's been a lot of controversy when it comes to GameStop. Not so much the Canadian version of GameStop, which is EB Games, but if you guys have something against GameStop, well, guess what? They don't ship it. You have to go pick it up. If you want to pick it up and finance it, the only place you can go pick it up from, yep, EB Games, which is essentially GameStop. So there's a lot of things in there to take into consideration before you guys decide to go and finance it. That's number one. Going to the specs, this is where it starts getting more fun. So both consoles are extremely powerful, right? Whatever you're going to be missing on one thing, you're essentially going to be getting in something else. So I've mentioned it before on my previous videos. It's not all specs, guys. It's really not. And again, I will use the same example that I used in the past. Look at the Sega Saturn compared to the original PlayStation. So the Sega Saturn was a better system altogether, but because it was not built with the developers in mind, despite the fact that it was a better system, it did not succeed, right? As opposed to the PlayStation, it didn't have as much high tech compared to the Sega Saturn, but because it was built the way it was built, they were able to build better games for it, which did look fantastic for the system. And it was a huge success. This is what you're seeing right now on the screen. So you're looking at the PlayStation 5. So you have 8-core AMD running at 3.5 gigahertz, as opposed to the Xbox Series X. You still have the 8-core AMD, but it's running at 3.8 gigahertz. You have on the PlayStation 5 10.28 teraflops. On the Xbox Series X, you have 12.16 teraflops. On the RAM, they both have the same type of RAM, so still 16 gig DDR6 RAM. The PlayStation 5, although it has it's running at less gigahertz on the 8 core, this is where it makes up for it, having 875 gigabytes of hard drive running at 5.5 gigabytes per second, right? As opposed to the Xbox Series X, yes, you have 1 terabyte, but it's only running at 2.4 gigabytes per second. So where they're gaining on the 8 core, they're losing on the hard drive, and vice versa for the PlayStation 5. They both have ray tracing, which is excellent. The PlayStation 5 has a faster USB speed. And for all of you that are thinking right now, well, who cares? Why does that matter? Well, you're going to see in a second. So the PlayStation 5, when it comes to the digital version of it, the digital version essentially has the exact same specs. The only difference is that it's missing the disc slot, as opposed to the Xbox Series X digital version. You're looking at a weaker system. So you only have 3.6 gigahertz on their 8 core AMD and 4 teleflops. So that's one thing. The other thing, you would expect that in a digital gaming console, you are going to need that faster USB in case you want to plug in an external hard drive. So having a faster USB on the PlayStation 5 gives it a huge advantage when it comes to the digital console. So it is more expensive, but with good reason why it's more expensive. The second thing that the PlayStation 5 has over the Xbox would be the look. So, looking at both consoles face to face, I've mentioned this before, the Xbox essentially looks like a black cereal box, something that I would essentially hand over to my kids for them to have breakfast with, as opposed to the PlayStation 5. It really looks more presentable. It looks like a gaming console, especially when you're looking at all the LED lights it has on the system and the controller. And we're going to get to the controller in just 1 second. An extra thing here is the accessories. So, number one, the VR, which the Xbox Series X is completely lacking altogether. But it didn't really have it in the previous consoles as well. So it's not really a big surprise that they didn't really go for it here either. They didn't really give us the impression that they're going to be taking it out anyways. The other accessories, it feels like the PlayStation 5 is advertising the accessories a lot more, right? And so you have first party headsets, cameras. So those are one thing. But the other thing on top of it, so although the Xbox Series X has one big thing going for it, which is essentially extra storage in the form, the shape, and the size of a USB flash drive, which is absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe they're able to fit 1 terabyte in a hard drive, right? Like really in a USB key, it is so tiny, so efficient. The inconvenience part of it, the con is that it's really expensive. Looking at the PlayStation 5, yes, you're stuck with those big, bulky flash drive, USBs, hard drives. Yes, you really are. But because theoretically anybody can come up with one, it will end up being cheaper. There's going to be no scarcity. It's going to drive the price down. So you're going to be paying less for those accessories, mainly that external hard drive. And because it also has a faster USB, well, you're essentially going to be loading your games a lot faster to begin with, which is a huge deal. Huge deal. You're looking at the UI. Nothing much to say here except for the fact that the PlayStation 5 did create a brand new UI, which, at least the way I see it, looks phenomenal. I know a lot of people have said that it does feel a little bit too crowded, right? Like you open it up, there's too many things going. I personally love the fact that they kind of integrated your friends, your games, your options, like everything is there. You can go everywhere and anywhere based on the UI, as opposed to the Xbox Series X. Well, they essentially took the same one as last time. So there's that as well. It's more preferences when it comes to the UI, but it is an important one. I mentioned sound when I went over the comparison of the gaming consoles last time. Sound, I never went too much into it. I did leave um, a link in the description on the previous video that you guys can check out and make your own decision. I did find the Xbox Series X 3D sound a lot better. Although, let's be honest, they can both do it. I would give a slighter edge when it comes to 3D sound to the Xbox. Going over their heating, right? Or I should say, lack of. So the PlayStation 5 is mainly focusing on heat gels, coolants, things like that, as opposed to the Xbox. You're looking at more the fans that will do the difference there. At the end of the day, they are theoretically both supposed to cool it equally good. So I'm not really worried there. The most important thing that I find here, right, is the games. So the PlayStation 5 already has some more games, and focusing also a lot on first party games as opposed to the Xbox Series X. I know they do have something up their sleeves. I'm not worried about that. They're essentially telling us they won't have anything going out for approximately 2 years. So that's a big difference when it comes to next gen consoles. I wanted to essentially play Halo, which I can't, right? Big difference. There are a few things also here when you're talking about games that you have to take into consideration. So, and they kind of go back and forth um, between PlayStation 5 and Xbox. So it's up to you guys to see your preferences here. So the PlayStation 5, you do have a PlayStation Plus that you kind of need to go and access some multiplayer games. You have PlayStation Now that gives you access to a huge library of games. It does not compare though to the Game Pass of the Xbox. That's one thing. The Xbox also allows you to play it in almost everywhere, including the PC, just because they have the capability, right? They're essentially Windows based, let's be honest. The PlayStation, you're not that fortunate. You do have the option to go and run it on your PlayStation. It does not run as smoothly as the Xbox. You have access with remote play when it comes to the PlayStation 5, which is a huge, huge advantage, right? You can do that also when it comes to your Xbox. So you have pros and cons there. But the biggest thing is the Game Pass is a lot better when it comes to uh, online gaming and really variety. Because the PlayStation 5, I find the biggest con when it comes to PlayStation Now is that it's streaming and it's all about the streaming, right? I've had it, I will tell you, for a good 2.5 years, and I kept it for so long just because I absolutely loved playing these classic games, PS2 games, um, PS3 games. There's a lot of there's a lot of variety as well, not as much as Xbox, but games that make that I care about, games that I wanted to play in the past and I wasn't always able to. But the streaming that you had to go through. I mean, I almost felt at that time giving up my PS4 and switching over to Stadia. Obviously, I did not. I just stopped my PlayStation Now. I wasn't that desperate. But that being said, there's a huge advantage when it comes to online streaming, online games, I should say, as opposed to the PlayStation 5. At the moment, I would say they're kind of like tied in the games right now, although I'm more inclined for the PlayStation 5 just because of these first party games that they're coming out with now. The next thing is the controllers. So the controllers, when you're looking at the Xbox, they kind of remind me of the Xbox One Pro controllers. So I never necessarily liked their D-pad as much. Not that it's a bad one. I just preferred playing it with the PlayStation 4 at the time, and I don't understand why they still require batteries. You can definitely get something to be able to recharge the controller, but you do have to pay an extra fee for it. as opposed to the PlayStation 5, it just has a lithium battery inside. The triggers on it, they vibrate independently, which is great. You have your headphone jack, you have your share button, and you have something called a dynamic latency input when it comes to the triggers, which essentially it's supposed to give you better input lag, better for games. Now, I'm not a big gamer when it comes to um, first person shooters and the X like on the Xbox. However, I am on the PC. So for me in this case, I wouldn't really notice the difference if you guys are great, something to take into consideration. But on the PlayStation, and this is what for me makes the biggest difference, although I find nobody has really took advantage of the built-in speaker. Well, heck, you have a built-in speaker. In case you guys haven't realized yet, you have a built-in mic. That's something new. You have a headphone jack, absolutely. You have a touchpad. You have adaptive triggers, which is supposed to adjust the pressure depending on the game. You have mentioned before uh, rechargeable controller, right? You have a lithium battery in there. You have something called haptic engine, which it's supposed to make you feel different surfaces as you're walking through them, right? As opposed to grass, mud, water, and so on and so forth. So you have a better controller as far as I'm concerned on the PlayStation 5. So you're looking at the two systems side by side. I mean, they're both amazing. They both have that 4K quality, right? That can potentially go up to 8K at the same time. Both are super powerful. Going back and forth between these systems, it really almost feels like I'm going back between original PlayStation and Sega Saturn. That's how it feels to me right now. There's more pros on the PlayStation 5 than I have on the Xbox Series X, despite the fact that the Xbox Series X is a more powerful system on paper. There's a lot more going for the PlayStation. This is how I see it. Obviously, I'm a little bit more biased because most of my friends and family do own PlayStations, so my whole environment is more based on PlayStation. It's something that I would play a lot more. But that being said, I always get both consoles just because, hey, I'm a collector, I'm a gamer, and I pretty much love playing them. So these are my thoughts. This is my opinion. Went over a little bit more the specs, the details of it, and kind of added my 2 cents of based on all this, what to really expect and what makes more sense. Tell me what you guys think. Am I right or am I wrong? Do you guys have a different point of view? Something that, maybe I forgot. Let me know in the comments. So like it if you liked it, subscribe. I'm going to be doing also additional news, more updates when it comes to this kind of stuff. Let me know if you guys want to see anything different. And with that being said, thanks so much for watching. Peace.